Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the beautifully tragic and fiercely romantic world of Oscar Wilde. Specifically, we're going to unpack his classic 1888 fairy tale, The Nightingale and the Rose. Now, don't let the fairy tale label fool you. This isn't just a simple children's bedtime story. It's an absolute masterclass in Gothic romantic aesthetics, and it's layered with some pretty heavy critiques of society, art, and human nature. So whether you're a student studying literature right now, or you're just someone who loves a story that completely tugs at your heartstrings while making you think, you are definitely in the right place.
So, let's dive into this. Have you ever poured your absolute heart and soul into doing something for someone else? Maybe you went all out trying to impress a crush, finding them the absolute perfect gift, only to have them completely overlook it? Or just fail to appreciate your effort entirely? It's a universally frustrating experience, right? Well, Oscar Wilde takes that incredibly relatable, very modern teenage feeling of unappreciated sacrifice, and he basically dials it up to 100 in this 19th century masterpiece.
Here is a quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the student's superficial sorrow, move on to the nightingale's desperate quest, then a sacrifice of blood, the rejected red rose, and finally, we'll wrap up with Wilde's warning to us.
All right, part 1, the student's superficial sorrow.
We open our story with a young student. He's sitting in his garden, just crying his eyes out because he can't find a single red rose for a dance. He dramatically cries out, on what little things does happiness depend? I have read all that the wise men have written, and all the secrets of philosophy are mine, yet for want of a red rose is my life made wretched. I mean, think about the irony here. This is a guy who prides himself on knowing all the deep secrets of philosophy, yet he's literally brought to tears, weeping on the grass, just because he doesn't have a specific flower to give a girl at a school dance. He claims to be this great intellectual, but his despair is, well, incredibly surface level.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast Wilde sets up right off the bat. Up in the oak tree, a nightingale is listening to the student. To the student, love is basically a transaction. It's a logical equation. If I get a red rose, I get to dance with the girl. But to the nightingale, who sings of love every single night, love is profound. She actually believes love is more precious than emeralds and dearer than fine opals. She sees this weeping boy as a true lover who suffers for his passion, completely projecting her own deep experiential understanding of romance onto a kid who is actually just having a pretty shallow pity party. The rest of nature, however, isn't quite as romantic as our nightingale. As the boy weeps, a little green lizard runs past and literally laughs out loud at him. A butterfly, just casually chasing a sunbeam, stops to ask why he's crying, and a daisy actually whispers to its neighbor that the whole situation is ridiculous. These elements of nature represent a much more cynical, realistic view of the boy's teenage melodrama. They mock him. And this proves that out of everyone in the garden, only the nightingale truly values and understands the profound mystery of love.
Which brings us to part 2, the nightingale's desperate quest.
Moved by what she truly believes is pure, unfiltered love, the nightingale decides she absolutely has to help. She spreads her brown wings and soars like a shadow across the garden, completely desperate to find this prized red rose for the weeping student. And what follows is a classic fairy tale structure, the rule of 3. First, she visits a tree in the center of the grass, but its roses are the white rose, as white as the foam of the sea. It sends her to a second tree around the sundial, but its roses are the yellow rose, as yellow as a mermaid's hair. Finally, she's sent to the tree beneath the student's window. This is the red rose tree, but then tragedy strikes. The tree explains that the winter frost has nipped its buds, and the winter storm has broken its branches. It's going to have no roses at all this year.
The nightingale is devastated. She begs for a way, literally any way at all, to get just one red rose. The tree hesitates. It warns her that the method is terrible. To create this rose, she must build it out of music by moonlight and stain it with her own heart's blood. She has to sing all night long with her breast against a thorn. The thorn must literally pierce her heart, draining her lifeblood into the tree to bring the rose to life. It is the ultimate fatal price.
Now, to understand why Wilde wrote this pretty gruesome but beautiful requirement, we need a super quick history lesson. Oscar Wilde was the leader of a 19th century movement called aestheticism. Basically, this philosophy championed art for art's sake. It meant that beauty and artistic expression were the absolute highest values in life, far, far above practical utility or logic. Wilde was actually so committed to his lifestyle and beliefs that he eventually went to prison for them. In this story, the nightingale is the ultimate artist. She is willing to trade her very life to create a singular piece of perfect beauty, the red rose, simply for the sake of love and art.
And here is where Wilde delivers a massive gut punch of dramatic irony. The Nightingale tells the student she's going to make this sacrifice for him, asking only that he be a true lover in return. But the student? He doesn't speak her language at all. He just pulls out his notebook with a lead pencil and actually critiques her singing. He writes, "She is like most artists, she is all style without any sincerity. She would not sacrifice herself for others." Guys, he literally writes this down in his notebook, entirely oblivious to the fact that she is about to go die for him.
Let's move to part 3. A sacrifice of blood. As the student goes to sleep on his little bed, dreaming of his love, the nightingale flies back to the rose tree and presses her breast against the thorn under the cold crystal moon. And this brilliantly illustrates the connection between art, passion, and suffering. As the nightingale sings, the rose actually begins to bloom. First, as she sings of the birth of love, the rose is a pale mist, silver like the dawn. But the tree urges her to press closer. As the thorn goes deeper and she sings of the birth of passion, a delicate pink flush comes into the leaves. Finally, the tree cries for her to press the thorn directly into her heart. She sings of love perfected by death, and as her lifeblood flows away, the rose turns entirely crimson like the eastern sky. The physical transformation of the flower perfectly matches the escalating pain and passion of her song.
Her sacrifice is so profoundly beautiful that it literally alters the world around her. Her final burst of music is so magnificent that the white moon actually forgets the dawn and lingers in the sky just to listen. The song echoes all the way to the purple cavern in the hills, and it even wakes the sleeping shepherds from their dreams. Even the newly formed red rose trembles all over with ecstasy in the cold morning air. It is a monumental triumph of art. But Wilde doesn't let us stay in this beautiful moment for long. He abruptly contrasts the glorious creation of the rose with cold, harsh reality. On one side, the nightingale is dead, lying in the long grass with a thorn in her heart. She gave absolutely everything. And on the other side, the student wakes up at noon, perfectly well-rested, looks out the window and sees the rose without having any clue what it cost.
Which leads us to part 4, the rejected red rose. This brings us to the devastating falling action of our story. The student has his prize, and he runs off to the professor's house to present it to the girl who promised to dance with him. But wait, let's just pause and look at his reaction when he first sees the rose. He doesn't wonder where it came from in the dead of winter. He doesn't feel a sense of mystery or awe. He literally says, "Why, what a wonderful piece of luck. It is so beautiful that I am sure it has a long Latin name." His lack of empathy is just staggering. He is looking at a literal miracle, a flower born of blood, moonlight, and song, and his only instinct is to categorize it scientifically.
So he takes this absolutely priceless rose to the girl, and what happens? She frowns and rejects it. Seriously, if we were to chart her absurd materialism, it would look something like this. About 20% of her reasoning is simply that the red flower won't match her blue dress. But the overwhelming 80% of her reasoning is that the Chamberlain's wealthy nephew has sent her real jewels. She casually dismisses the reddest rose in all the world by stating a cold economic fact. Jewels cost far more than flowers. She completely devalues the romantic gesture in favor of social status and wealth. So, the crucial point here is the horrific irony of this betrayal. Let's break it down. A life was traded for true love, and in response, the student angrily throws the rose into the street. It was built by magic, music, and moonlight, and it falls directly into a dirty gutter. It was the ultimate artistic achievement, and it is unceremoniously crushed by a cartwheel, as a cart just rolls right over it. The juxtaposition of the nightingale's high ideals being literally dragged through the mud and crushed by the wheels of everyday practical society is absolutely brutal.
And finally, part 5, Wilde's warning to us. You see, Wilde isn't just trying to make us sad here. He's giving us a massive warning about what happens when society loses its soul to materialism and cold logic. Look at the student's final conclusion. Does he learn anything at all about the depths of the human heart? Nope. As he walks away from the girl's house, he decides that love is just a silly thing. He decides it's unpractical and that it isn't half as useful as logic. Because he lives in an age where being practical is everything, he decides to completely abandon romance to go study metaphysics. He goes back to his room, pulls out a great dusty book, and just begins to read. He retreats right back into the safe, emotionless world of academics, completely missing the profound tragedy and beauty that just occurred right outside his window.
All of this builds to a question we really have to ask ourselves. The nightingale gave her life for beauty and love, only for it to be tossed into a gutter by a boy obsessed with logic, for a girl obsessed with status. So my question to you is this: In a world still utterly obsessed with status, wealth, and practical logic, are we inadvertently crushing the red roses of true art, passion, and unseen sacrifice under our own cartwheels? The next time someone offers you something born of their own effort and heart, try to look past its practical value and appreciate the music and the moonlight it took to create it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking for the beauty in the world.